Mom was a type of person that liked going places. She was an instigator, um, getting us to the play days and getting things done so we could go to the show or Chautauqua, or those are tent shows.
Yeah.
And yeah, she liked going places.
Did they have, where did the Chautauquas stop, at Amadon or?
Amadon, yeah. And they were really good. We thought they were real good, especially the comedians, and of course they worked the crowd real good.
Yeah.
And they were pretty much fun. We'd talk about it for days because that was really exciting.
That was the big thing.
Yeah.
Well, now, did you guys ever get into the Slope County Fair and all that?
Oh, yeah. We always went to the fair. Always took in the fair dancing. The Grady Hall was a big place for us to dance in until that became condemned. Then they moved over to the theater. And of course by that time shows weren't. I don't know, but what that episode of we getting almost gassed didn't put a damper on the show business after that.
Oh, is that right?
I can't remember really much of going to shows after that.
Talk about that gassing.
Well, that was really strange. We went into the Dad never would go to the movies. He'd go over and play pool over at the pool hall. And I told Mom I didn't feel very good. So she said, why don't you go outside and get some fresh air? So I stumbled on out, you know, and nobody seemed to know any different about the way I was acting. So I came back in and they said, show's over. And what really happened was that John Miller, who lived out there close to Amadon, came in New England, came back from New England. He stepped into the theater and he thought something is darn wrong. This is people, I suppose, looking pretty dead or pretty... Anyhow, he went up to the projecting room up there and found Tony passed out. So he just shut the thing off and says, show's over, so as not to panic, you know, anyone. So then everybody tries to get up and out, and they fell, and they just did everything. So he went over and got the guys from the pool hall, come on out and we'll get these people out of the theater. They're about being gassed, maybe somebody's in bad shape. So Dad and Scooney walk around with a bottle of whiskey to revive people. And there was some that were in pretty bad shape, you know. Tony was frothing at the mouth and that kind of stuff. Took a long time for him to come to. And then some of the kids that were close to the front, they were in pretty bad shape. Because I talked to Dick Inman this summer at the reunion, and he said, Russ and I came home and we fell. We were so bruised up by that. We got home, you know, and they were groggy.
What caused it?
Well, a pipe came off from there, and it was just exhaust was coming on into the theater.
Now, what do you mean from what they were running the projectors from?
Right, yeah, the motor, I suppose.
They had a gas motor that ran the theater?
I don't know what really ran
okay.
it. I just don't know, but see, I think that it uncoupled up there close to the stage, as far as, but I imagine maybe it was thrown up for Tony to get it so bad. I don't know.
Okay.
Unless Tony was susceptible to this sort of thing. But yeah, that was talked about for a long time. Yeah, that was scary. That whole bunch could have gone. Could have left the world.
And then Ken and Orville played baseball. They played right in Amadon most of the time?
Orville did, but Ken didn't play much. He had, I don't know, I imagine they didn't have a left-handed glove for him. That's why he didn't play much. And he didn't really care that much about it either. But Orville was really a good shortstop, and he was a good third baseman. And they played ball every Sunday there, pretty, you know.
Geez, how long would it take you to get into Amadon from?
Well, it's just 9 miles.
Oh, okay.
And Dad really liked baseball because he played ball when he was a kid. He actually played ball with the Indians down there, you know. He talks about beating this team and chasing them back across the river. And if they got beat, they hit them over back to where they belong. So this is one of those things. And of course, the Hummelvigs he grew up with them over in Minnesota, and they all settled out west of Antelope.
Oh, okay.
They were good friends back then, and so we saw a lot of each other back and forth then. From the east.
What about you girls had a basketball team? What, was that in high school or was that in grade school? Or
No, that was in high school. We were in Amadon. We only had a few darn girls in the high school in itself. I think all but 2 of the whole high school girls played ball in that little team.
Had to have everybody in school to get to make it, to make a team.
But it was our teacher who was, there we go. Dad, what did you...
Now, you were talking about your basketball team.
Oh, that team. Yeah, well, see, it took six to a team. That was girls' rules then. You only played half the court.
Okay.
We didn't play full court. And we played Havelock and Rame, or Marmouth, I don't know which, and Buffalo, South Dakota. And the only one we won was with Havelock.
So you had that team 1 year?
1 year.
It was
Our teacher that started this, just for, well, when you get snowed in like we were that winter, he started a basketball girls team. And I thought it was kind of great because it gave us something to do too.
Yeah.
But to travel down to Buffalo, South Dakota to play a game, now that was way...
Did you travel down by cars or?
Yeah.
Was that right?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, who all drove you down there?
Well, it was the basketball team, and Nick Redinger, I think, is the one that was working at Tony's, and he drove one car. That's the car I went down in. And then there were other people that who offered to drive.
Who all was on that team with you?
Well, there was Ina Hummelvig, Artis Hummelvig, and Mary Parkin, or Mary Narum at that time, Lenore Piper, Dorothy Inman, Artis Hummelvig, and Elizabeth Eggy, and Edith Gillette. And there was Dorothy Hummelvig and Pearl Gillette were the only 2 that didn't play, didn't even practice with us or anything.
Oh.
But we had a good time, even if we were pretty slow and pretty funny.
Yeah. Now, Mary Parkin is what? Chris Narum's daughter?
Right,
And they're the ones that live 2 miles from you?
yeah.
Now,
And she's the only daughter.
She's the only daughter, okay.
And 5 boys.
And 5, okay.
Lawrence and Kelly and Dewey and Cliff and John. And they all...
So there was what, 6?
There were 6 in all.
6 total, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, go ahead.
I don't know what I was going to say. Oh, they used to break horses in the wintertime. And, I don't know if it was for a sport or if it was for profit. I don't know.
Okay.
They,
They farmed, oh yeah, that's right, they farmed and all of it. Now, were there any other Narums out here then at that time, or?
no,
So the rest of the Narum family and stuff was back in Minnesota?
they were back in Fargo and Minnesota and yeah.
Now, how are we related to the Narums that live up around Douglas, North Dakota? That
Well,
would have been, they had to come out of Minnesota, or?
my dad was the youngest of the family, and most of them people up there were his oldest sister, Mary, and these were her kids.
Okay,
So that's about as far as I could
and
go
they,
with
and
them.
they, okay, and then they farmed also then?
Yeah, there were some, yeah, up by Garden, yeah, that's right.
Let's talk about the Narum picnics. When did those start?
Oh, they started about the time, well, I suppose it was probably in the 40s, I don't know, 50s. Late 40s and 50s, something.
Who instigated those?
Well, they used to come out to our place and they'd say, let's meet up there. Well, the folks did this for a while, and then they became sick and not able to. But they used to come down, and the Chris Narum's kids used to go up a lot.
And they would
Ken
meet,
took part in them a lot when he was living here
Yeah.
in Amador.
I know that we used to, we went to,
Mhm.
3 or 4 of them, I remember, but, and that was in the north unit of the Teddy Roosevelt National Park, is where you'd meet.
Yeah,
'Cause
right.
that was
They still do.
They still do?
Yeah. Every other year they have a,
Oh, really?
oh yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm. But see, they're getting so few, there's only 2 left in the Chris Narum family, John and Mary.
Oh,
And there's just 2 of us, Orville and I.
yeah, that's right.
So, but I didn't get to know those people very well because I didn't see, I didn't, when they started those picnics, I think that we were married here and didn't go up there,
Yeah.
you know. I didn't feel like taking a bunch of little kids up there, so,
Well, I remember I remember going to about 3 of them when I was a kid.
yeah.
Because we always played baseball. We'd
Yeah.
pile out of the car and go play baseball until it was time to eat, and then we'd go play baseball some more,
Yeah.
So that was,
Yeah, I remember that part of it too.
but I don't remember it being, I was so young, I didn't remember where we went, so.
Yeah,
But
right.
all of them were up there in that north unit of
Mhm.
the park.
I know we took Mom up there once.
Mhm.
It was years ago. See, Mom came from Kindred, North Dakota, and she was born there. And
And she's the Jordan,
yeah,
her.
and she's one of 11 kids, I think. Yeah. Well, she was the 3rd oldest.
Mm. Do you know anything about the rest of those kids? Where they?
Yeah, well, see, through this genealogy I've been trying to dig up for you, are these sisters of hers daughters. They're cousins to me.
Oh, okay.
Doris Hadlin was Caroline's daughter, and she's filled me in on a lot of stuff. And Maxine is Henry's daughter, and she's filled in quite a bit too. And then Mildred Lund is Clara's daughter. Those are all Mom's sisters, see,
Okay.
except Henry. And that's the only ones that are alive yet, and I thought if I contacted them, I'd get some information from them where...
Now, this Aunt Virgie, is she the one that lives out in California or something that you talked about?
Aunt Betsy?
Or Betsy? Okay.
Oh yeah, she was the last one of the family, well, maybe not either. I think Olaf was the youngest, and he was alive last I knew, but I don't know about him now.
Okay.
He was from Omaha.
Oh, okay.
But they scattered around from Minneapolis to Kindred.
Now, you had, who was it, Grandpa Jordan?
Yeah, they came out here, he and the youngest son came out here years ago. He had asthma real bad, so they came out here because of the climate. And I guess it did help, because we got clean air out here,
Yeah.
and there isn't so much humidity. But I didn't know many of them, 29, when we got our Model A car, we drove down there. And we got up 4 o'clock one morning and drove all day and got to Kindred sometime around dusk or dark. And it just seems to me that wherever we went, we were eating. I never saw a feet. It was just food, food, food. But there was a lot of people to see. There was Mom's folks in Kindred, and then there was a lot of people in Fargo, and then there was things in Barnesville.
Uh-huh.
A lot of Mary's kids lived in Barnesville. So we visited a lot of relatives that year, but I was 9 years old. Didn't remember a heck of a lot.
Yeah.
But
Huh. Well, what else you want to put on this thing?
I don't know. Crazy things that happen kind of go.
You remember them sporadically or whatever?
Right, that's it. That's kind of the way I wrote too. Sometimes I was in the present, sometimes I was in the past. You just didn't know exactly where you should.
So you guys pretty much heated your place though with coal.
Yeah.
And you, where did you get your coal from?
We got our coal from a coal mine east of us, up at on section 15, over on section 9.
Wherever it was convenient then.
Yeah, and then if they had real tough mining, they'd bring up a stick of dynamite and blow that up, because you'd run into one of these knotted stumps or something, and you couldn't get in there.
Knotted stumps in the coal?
Yeah, probably in the coal. You couldn't pick it out, or you couldn't dig it out. So they'd blast it, and then they could probably load a bunch of coal out of there then. That looked like hard work to me, I think.
Now, who usually got the coal?
What do you mean?
Was it Grandpa that got the coal, or?
Oh, yeah, Grandpa and them guys used to kind of work in the mine, and then Orville and Ken would load the stuff up and bring it in and get it down in the basement. Then you'd have to move it back into the basement too, then, you see. You could throw it into the little windows on the side, but that'd have to be picked up from that pile and moved farther back, see? So
Now, was the furnace in the basement?
the furnace was in the basement. Well, we had a heater, a pot-bellied heater there, you know, that we had for years.
Oh, okay,
then,
before you put the furnace in?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then, same with our lighting, first we had lamps. We had kerosene lamps a long time. Then we got into a gas light, and then we got the wind charger that Dewey fixed up for electric. That was really living uptown.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, how did you run the radios then? You
They
didn't.
were all battery.
Battery. Okay.
All battery. It would cover a whole, you know, there was an A battery and I had B batteries. And our radios were very staticky at that time.
Yeah.
But there's another thing. There's Orville bought the radio for us. He helped out a lot of things. Really,
Is that right?
A lot. Yeah. He was kind of a silent sort of a guy. That get these good things and never bragged about it or anything.
He made you and who was it, Irene, or you and Helen, some baby cribs or something for your dolls?
Oh, that was Ken.
Ken did that?
When he was coming out of that carbuncle thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he got kind of bored, so he took apple boxes. Apples always came in wood boxes back then. And he made a round table and 2 chairs out of apple boxes, and he painted them green. I remember that. And then Mrs. Connor up there heard that he was doing this, so she made some bedding for cribs. And Mom sent for one of these surprise deals where you get a doll, and then you got all little, you know, jacks and dominoes and these little movie things that you look at. You know, and what a Christmas! I'll never forget it. And Ken was.
So you got all that at Christmas then?
Yeah, that's a Christmas I remember the most about it. It was really. And Mom was right in there with him, you know, just having a heck of a good time doing all of this. And hiding all of this stuff from us, you see, while we were in school and stuff. He was laid up in bed for quite a while at that time.
What was Christmas like? What, did you get a tree or?
No, those early years, Mom always decorated with something, crepe paper, she had something going for Christmas. And I imagine it was really a trial as to try and get something to put in, you know, we used to hang our socks up then, because they didn't have a tree.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that must have been quite a worry when you didn't have any way of getting to town and you didn't have any money if you did get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was, but she managed to do what she could, and then when Orville started teaching, he'd bring his tree home after the program and we'd have it at home.
Okay. So, but trees weren't fashionable then anyway, were they, or were they?
They were, to a degree. There'd be a tree at the Christmas, at the school program, always. I don't know, I don't know, we used to bring money for our candy bags, see, from home. We'd bring it in there and the teacher would buy it all, and then they'd fill these sacks and give them the sacks of candy, maybe an apple, and then, but our trees were lit with candles that had little clippers. You put the clipper on the boughs, and then you light these candles. Dangerous as heck.
Yeah, I'll bet.
There'd be two guys standing watching this darn thing while they lit the thing up, you know, for the Christmas program, and then watch it like a hawk. It would go just poof like that if it ever got going. So it was watched pretty close. So really, you didn't really light the candles. You kind of hung them on there at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was no big thing. But
Where would you guys normally, when you did get trees and stuff, where would you get them from?
I don't know. I think they must have bought them in town someplace.
Oh.
That I
Were they
know.
the regular spruce trees?
Yeah,
or?
they were a fir tree or
Or a
some
fir
sort,
one.
whatever.
I'll be darned.
But somebody would play Santa Claus and distribute the gifts and whatever they had to do.
Well, I remember that one Christmas we went out to Yamada
Right.
when we were kids. And we went out there and it was kind of a last minute deal. And I know that Ron and I sat in that day in the audience there and everybody got presents and I thought, my goodness, you know, that's kind of nice. You know, and then pretty soon, damn, I got a present, you know. God, how did they know I was going to be here? How did Santa Claus know? You know, because I got a coloring book. I remember that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, that was a strange thing when we were out on the farm. We heard that there was going to be a Christmas program at Dover. And see, after I left home, there was no such a thing as school programs. So St. Mary's, they'd have probably a concert or something with a whole bunch or whatever. But so we went over to Dover that night, and Ralph had given me a big carton of double mint gum. So I took a few packages and wrapped them and gave one package to Sharon Rowe and Karen Rowe, the Earl Rowe's kids. See? And Vera never got through thanking me because she says, I never even thought about it, that'd be some gifts, and they were passing them out and they wouldn't have any for those kids of hers. And when a package came to her kids, she was just so elated. And I don't know how come I even thought about it. I really don't, but it wouldn't have mattered what was in that package that they got.
Just that they got one,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
I think she sent Earl to town the next day to be sure and get Ron and you something.
Is that right?
And that wasn't necessary at all, but it was just that somebody got a package that night. But it was fun to go take a sled and go to some other school to a program. We enjoyed that.
You traveled by sled?
Yeah, but we didn't do that too much because it was so hard to harness horses at night in the dark and be cold. You have to hook the horses to the fence. Then you get ready to go. You get everybody bundled up, and you've got 4 or 5 miles to go home again. It just wasn't. It just had to be a pretty darn nice night to do that. But boy, we thought that was really neat to go someplace. I like that. I guess we look forward to about anything going on in the wintertime.
And everybody would get involved in it then too.
Oh,
so I know, like going to Amadon and watching their plays, how everybody in town was in the play. You know, they had to get people from New England just to get spectators.
Well, I remember little Kenny Narum was a pretty good singer, but he wouldn't let on like he was. And Carrie says, why don't you come out and hear him sing, because he will not sing for anybody. And that's prompted me to get out there and hear him. He did have a good voice.
That's the show that we saw, because I know Mildred sang too. And they had everybody that was on stage was staring at the lights above there because they didn't want to get stage fright. So whoever was coaching them, because I remembered that they were staring up on at the lights.
And he did have a good, clear voice, and I don't know what he sang, but he did really well. But school programs, you know, there are no rural schools anymore.
You know, on that school thing, the teachers would what? They'd start out in the morning and teach the first graders, and then a little while later they'd do some stuff for the second graders while the first graders studied or something. And
yeah, you kind of give them some work to do while you pass on and go to another grade. That must have been real hard.
Yeah.
To be able to shift from say the second grade or something up to probably 6th grade stuff, you know, and then. But it was really funny how much you learn by being in the same schoolroom, even if you weren't at their level.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was talking to Borgil Hansen and I said, a lot of kids, she said, learned a lot just listening to another grade being taught
Yeah.
something. And a lot of that stuff would stick in their mind, you know, maybe some lesson on geography or something. Our maps rolled down over our blackboard
Uh-huh.
and they could be pointed out, you know, and stuff. But, yeah, it was, it still was educational no matter where you were or what you
Uh-huh.
were doing, really.
Yeah, as long as you didn't have to know it, you could just sit and listen. You could probably remember it better.
Yeah, I was always glad when it got up into some heavy poetry or something, I could ignore that. And I could finally get some work of mine done. But when it came to teaching little kids and stuff, it was fascinating to hear, you know, some of the tactics that they used to teach these kids. See? They always had some little blackboard work. Oh, I tell you, we must have been a funny-looking bunch of kids, though, up at the blackboard. I know we all went up there, and we'd be having arithmetic.
Uh-huh.
We'd have columns of adding and see who could do it first, you know, and all this kind of stuff. But, you know, everybody had to dress real warm back in them years, so you wore long-handled underwear. They were fleece-lined,
Fleece, what's that?
fuzzy
Oh, okay.
lining
Uh-huh.
on the inside of your cotton
Jeez.
uniform. And then, of course, you had cotton socks, and these had to be folded over like this, you know, and then you put your sock over it. Look at all the bulk, you know. Everybody looked like a bunch of bungee jumpers.
Yeah.
We were glad when we could wear boy jeans to school, and it covered up all of this stuff, you know. That was later on in the elementary that we could, you know. Yeah, and the coats that the boys wore usually were a wool with a sheepskin lining.
Okay.
It was heavy. They were very warm.
Oh.
You'd have froze to death back in them years, I think, with the cold houses and the cold schools.
Yeah.
And the way you had to come to school, a lot of them rode horseback, a lot of them come in a buggy. I mean, the Fred Stangers came in a buggy, but everybody rode horseback, and that was pretty cold.
Yeah.
So you had to be. That was.
So, but the community would get together then and make darn sure that there was enough coal, and they always had somebody to fire up the stove in the morning so that the schoolhouse was warm for the
Most
kids.
of those teachers took care of their own stoves up until Adeline. I think she's the first teacher that ever had anybody to fire.
Oh.
I don't know, maybe Orville did. It could have
Okay.
been. I don't remember. I haven't talked to them about it, but yeah, they always had a coal shed on the end of the school. I used to think that schoolhouse was so big, but when I step into these little schools now that have been moved,
Uh-huh.
they're pretty puny.
Yeah.
Because our school got moved to Amadon. It's the Amadon library of that school now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's an individual.
And they have, what, a grade school there in Amadon now?
Oh, yeah. There are two teachers out there. Judy Kober is teaching, and this girl, it's a Fitzik girl, I don't know what her name is, McHenry, I think. They both drive out from here
Oh, okay.
and teach out in Amadon.
Okay. So that, you could still see that school there. That's now the library at the school in Amadon.
Right.
Oh, I'll be darned.
And the one that's on the fairground is the White Lake School that was right by Culver's. I don't know if you
Okay.
remember a school being there or not.
No.
Okay. But that's the one they display as an old, that was the old schools, and they all look alike, pretty much.
How many students did you have in that school?
Well, see, when I went to school, it was not very bad. I think they maybe did 10, 12, maybe.
Oh, 10, 12 kids?
Yeah.
12.
But their early days, golly, they had some pretty older kids too, you know, 20, 25 kids in one little school, you know. That was,
That's, yeah.
and teaching every grade, so you could skip some grades when I was in school.
Because there was no kids that age
Right,
in that class.
So
Okay.
that is, I had two in my, Mary Kay and I went through elementary
Oh, okay.
together, and then Mary Parkin came down for 2 years. That was
And Mary's your age, Mary
Right.
Parkin, yeah.
Yeah. And Ken and Florence. Ken had 4 in his class, and I think Irene had 4 in her class. And I think down in Helen's class there might have been 6.
I'll be darned.
But then it jumped from 6th grade down into probably 2nd and 3rd.
Oh, is that right?
So, yeah, it wasn't always. And then if there was only one kid, like Leo Buzalski came to our school a year or two, and he was 1 grade behind me, but they kind of put him up in our grade and kind of roped us together then. So, yeah, there was ways of doing it.
Did you get out to the Badlands very often?
Yeah.
What would you do out there?
Oh, pick berries and most of the time pick chokecherries and stuff too.
You have picnics and stuff?
Plums. Oh yeah, you always took a picnic. And it was always with the Hummelvigs.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And that burning coal mine was quite a thing at that time. There were big cracks where you saw the red hot flames and stuff up alongside of a hill that had broke away or whatever. Now it just looks to me like it's all sunken ground. It's
Yeah.
not all
Is it still burning or is it out?
It's
or?
burning.
It is burning.
Yeah, it's burning.
Oh,
Sometimes during the drought years, that thing could catch fire or, you know.
Start a prairie fire then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah. But, well, we used to go out to the Hammond Dam there when Ken had his boat, and they fixed up a diving board out there and stuff, and we used to go swimming out there. We used to go out there, and he used to pull kids on water skis out at Stewart Lake.
Stewart Lake was that shallow one, right? And then you could almost walk across that thing. It looked like it was about a half mile wide or so, or if not wider.
Between Amadon and Bowman.
Yeah, on the west side. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was Hammond's Dam there when you were a kid?
No, I don't remember Hammond's Dam. Those dams I don't think were put in till later.
That's what the CCCs and all them guys
I
did.
don't
Then.
know if CCs did that or not. I really don't. I know they put in an Eastern Dam, and they put the dam on here in New England.
The Kerry Dam?
The Kerry Dam, there was one here too, down here, that I guess just broke. Because they used to swim down there by the bridge. They dammed it up, but see, in the spring of the year when the river got high, the dam broke.
Oh, okay.
And it kind of, I don't know, I thought there was a little bit of it kind of left.
You know, there was. When I was a kid, I remember
that
part of it being there yet, yeah.
And then that put a kibosh on the swimming pool.
Okay.
They swam on the west side of the bridge then. I remember that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because those bathhouses that are up here before the Boy Scouts up there in the city there now, that was the bathhouses that were down there.
Oh, what they're using for the Boy Scout hut? Well, they got the Lions Club in there now.
Is it?
Yeah, we were down there the other day, yeah. They got the Lions Club sign down there. Okay, that's where that came from then.
And then when that dam went out, then we just didn't have enough water to swim in. Right.
Well, did you get into New England very often?
Yeah, we did in the later years there. Kind of, Amadon kind of was, kind of dying out, you might say. There was nothing to go there for. So we used to take our cream in on Saturday night and get groceries and probably see a show or something.
Oh, okay.
And the town was full. You wouldn't believe.
Well,
there was no place to park. And, yeah.
Yeah.
So you realize how little places boomed at one time, and then now, there's hardly anybody driving.
Yeah, the stores ain't open anymore late Saturday nights anymore, huh?
No, the grocery store might during harvest now, but that's about it.
Yeah. Huh.
Easy.
Now, you got into Midway a lot then, too? You were out there in that
No,
neighborhood.
I missed that. I was too young to be going to those dances. Orville and Irene and Kelly and them guys, they went to the Midway dances and stuff. I wrote in this book here, too. We used to have a caravan, and gypsies come through once in a while. They always came in big touring cars, and they'd stop, and they were pretty shifty.
Mm-hmm.
They could keep you busy while the rest of them were picking up what they needed. And you're talking about Midway. I remember that they had parked. The group had stayed at that school that Hubert was going to, that board school you're talking about. They hung their clothes on the fence of the schoolyard, and a bunch of the local guys dressed up in these clothes and came to the Midway dance. And then when they were going to return this stuff, why, there was a big bruiser out there in front and watching over his little flock over there, so they didn't stop. You can bet they didn't stop. But
what would the gypsies do? I mean, did they just come up to do work, or?
No, they just traveled through, and well, let's say they stole things.
Uh-huh.
They get away with burning anything, because Hubert talks about when they lived there by that school.
Uh-huh.
This one lady came and asked for some food, and so Grandma took her to the garden, and she took, all she could, and then Hubert had saw them, seen these at the house, so he went in and got his gun and just stood out by the door, So the gal, she must have decided, no, she better not want to get in there, because if they got in the house, they could just so slicker you.
Yeah.
The grandma could always give them some loaf of bread or something like that too, because that's what they lived off of, the thing they begged off, stove.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Then when they wore out their welcome, they moved on.
They moved on, and they moved in a caravan.
Huh.
It was just a group, and they just go from one place to the other. And I always wondered why they were up here,
Yeah.
because it's so far between things out here. And I probably thought it was easy picking. They were
Probably.
patient, good people up here,
Yeah. Easy picking.
It's funny, when you think about that. But they used to have some big laughs about him in Amadon. They'd stop there and always hit the bar, and they'd all have a heck of a time with them people. It was usually the women that were out scrounging this stuff too. I don't know what the guys did. I don't really know, but they were a colorful group. They all wore black skirts and colorful blouses,
Uh-huh.
Pretty much the way gypsies dress.
Yeah.
Or the way you read about
Way you would picture them, or whatever.
Yeah, really.
Now, when you guys went to church, that was in Amadon, right?
Mm-mm. We had a Norman church. I was Lutheran then, see?
Uh-huh.
And there was a church about 5 miles east of us. And every year after school, we had 2 weeks of Bible study.
Uh-huh.
And so we'd ride horseback over there. Before they had the church built, they used to have it over in the Sinsby School. And there was quite a group of us.
Well, what was the name of the church?
Norman. Norman Lutheran. And that burned down.
Oh, okay.
And then they built a church a little farther east. And I don't know, I think they moved that away.
Well, then how did Grandma and Grandpa end up getting buried there at the Lebanon Lutheran Church there in Amadon?
Well, there was times there was no minister.
Okay.
They just didn't have a minister. The minister would usually come from New England, and he'd have service there probably every other Sunday.
Oh, okay.
And it was always in the afternoon, because they had church in down here. Then he also had Rainy Butte or Teepee Butte, or maybe both of them. I don't know. And then, of course, in the wintertime, they probably didn't have anybody out there, see. So, but Grandpa and Grandma Brentrup went to church in Amadon.
They went to church in Amadon.
Yeah.
So Grandma and Grandpa Narum now are buried at the Lebanon Lutheran Cemetery in Amadon. Now, was that
I have a feeling too, see, the baby that died had to be buried there. There was no such a thing as a church out there.
They didn't have a cemetery with a church out there, okay.
They didn't even have a church.
Oh, is that right?
Because the church was built in those real rough times there, because I'm pretty sure Dad had some you know, had a hand in
Yeah.
that building, and they had to scrounge it from the people. So it was
Uh-huh.
kind of like a skeleton of a church. But this Clarence had been buried out in Lebanon, out there by Hamadan,
Okay.
and I think that's where they wanted to be buried,
Oh, okay.
probably the same place. But I should tell you about that darn old Model T Ford we had. It was quite a outfit. It used to have a kind of, a, what do you call it, curtains or whatever it was. It had a top to it
Uh-huh.
that would fold down. if you
Convertible
wanted
type,
to.
yeah.
And then you could pull it up,
Uh-huh.
you know. But of course, with no garage, it kind of wore out and all that stuff. But Dad, you know, was never a mechanic. He couldn't learn anything. And I don't blame him. He grew up with horses. But sometimes we'd just have a heck of a time. We'd have to push up the hill and ride down. And they would stop and, oh Lord. And then they had poor lights on it. And sometimes they'd have somebody standing on the running board watching the ditch. And finally he put a spotlight on that thing, see, so that you could move it and get a little bit of bead on some of it. So we weren't traveling in the wintertime very much, if we could help it. But freeze you, oh boy, it was cold. And there were times they'd have to put a hot pan of ashes under the axle to get the oil, I suppose, warm enough to get some circulation in there and stuff.
So they could get it started.
But I remember when you know, Dad chewed snuff about that time. He didn't smoke at that time, but he chewed some snuff. And we just had to second guess when he was going to spit. So we could duck. See, I said we were always going against the wind, or else it seemed like it. But anyhow, it was so funny because they were so used to driving with horses that the horses knew the road home, you know, but they could looking at a crop and they'd be down in the ditch taking out a bunch of sunflowers before they could get back up on the road.
When he was driving the Model A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could wipe out quite a gang of sunflowers before you get back on the road again. And then flat tires were a big thing, you know. You always had your tire patching stuff along at all times. But anyhow, when he traded that thing in, he took it to Scranton and they said, does self-starter work? And he says, you bet. Stepped on the starter and it took off, you know, and here we've been cranking that Hummer for years. Orville just told me that it was that spotlight that was draining the battery.
Oh.
So you couldn't get it started, and I thought, holy smokes, if I'd have known that, I could have busted that thing off. That was quite a thing, but we used to take blankets, you know, and if we were making a long trip, we kids would sit under these blankets. It was cold this summer. We didn't go very much, I'll tell you. I don't appreciate being that cold.
Yeah. Appreciate today's cars that are nice and warm, and or at least, you know. So.
Yeah. But I don't know, you know, you wonder, we never thought anything of it.
Yeah. It was part of life. Yeah.
Everybody was doing the same thing, everybody was living through the same cold and same, you know, the house used to get so cold at night that you'd gauge how cold it was, how much ice you had to break off the water pail.
Oh, is that right?
But Dad'd get up early and he'd get the fires going, and then we'd come out and dress by the stove.
What?
Had some skin sizzled on that too. But we did have a lot of, you know, there was a lot of hardships out there too, you know, a lot of good with the bad. Yeah. Really, fella, just think about some of the good times you had.
Yeah.
Forget about the bad.
Now, what was the house like?
Oh, it was roomy, you know, compared to most people. They lived in pretty small places. I didn't know what the shack looked like, the one that they had before I was. No, it had 4 rooms, a dining room, kitchen, bedroom, living room, and a front porch, and of course we had a back porch.
Uh-huh.
And
And you had an upstairs, right?
yeah, and upstairs, but we finished only 1 room up there because we had to board the teacher.
Oh, okay.
So it was cold. The boys remember frost on the covers when they woke up in the morning.
Is that right?
Yeah, it'd be that cold. And nobody loitered up there trying to get dressed.
So you guys would sleep, the girls slept downstairs and the boys upstairs
Well,
then, or?
in the summertime, we all slept upstairs, girls and the boys. But in the wintertime, we'd take a bed down and put it in the living room because it was too cold for us sometimes.
Uh-huh.
And Ken might, I know Ken slept down there too, but Ken, when he got a little older, he slept upstairs no matter how cold it was.
Is that right?
He'd try and get good and warm before he went up to bed and keep warm and stuff, and then crawl in quick,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was actually a 2-story with a basement then too, huh?
Well, yeah, but the basement was only a hole in the ground that was dug away about 3 or 4 feet, a ledge of dirt.
Uh-huh.
And the foundation was out here, and then they dug out there, and
That's where they put the furnace in later.
furnace, and we had our fruit room down there in the cold.
Oh, okay.
That was it. And then of course, when we got our wind charger, we had to have our batteries down there.
Oh, okay.
And we had the cell batteries.
Uh-huh. Dry cell battery?
and
Oh,
I
okay.
write about this too in my book about when I was to take care of Harry Stegner's up there one night. They were going to a wedding at Glenallen, and they wanted to know if I'd stay and watch and see to it the sheep got into the barnyard. And I tell you, that was a circus, because I didn't know anything about sheep. You don't chase them in, you lead them in.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't know what a leader looked like.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know which one was. And some were jumping on the banks, and some were heading out there. You couldn't, if you tried to chase them, they just scattered. Dumb critters, So I just threw up my hands and says, "You're on your own. Find the barnyard if you want it." So I went up to the house, and here's this wind charger going to beat the dickens, and I see the batteries in the basement were bubbling, and I know that is not good. I didn't know what to expect.
Uh-huh.
I tried to shut that thing off, and the darn wire broke off the extension up there.
Uh-huh.
So I couldn't get it turned out of the wind. So I hustled on. I turned on all the lights
Uh-huh.
because I knew that's
You had to drain the
should
batteries
do
down,
that,
yeah.
keep it,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't. I didn't know, explode, whatever.
Yeah.
So I ran home, and I couldn't see a light. I couldn't see a light. I thought, oh my God, Mom and Dad are gone, and what am I going to do? And I got closer to the house, and there was a light. Mom was the only one home. So we walked back up, and I found a barrel, or we found a barrel somewhere, and it snagged that extension and got it tied down pretty good, and turned that wind charger out of the wind.
Turn it out of the wind, and that was the only way to turn it on and off.
Yeah.
It just turned the blades out of the wind.
Right. Just flap that thing out of the wind, and then I tied that darn rope to the leg of that cow and swore a little bit. And then we walked home. I thought, I'm not sticking around in this place. But I talked to Dewey afterwards, because he's the guy that was putting up these charges. He says that's what you do. Turn on the lights, because that could have ruined the batteries.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what it overcharges.
Uh-huh.
Whatever it does.
It had no way of automatically shutting off the charger when the batteries were charged. And
So it looked like a heck of a party going on at that house. Upstairs and down. But it's funny what you do.
Yeah.
I wasn't brilliant about any of this, but it's funny what you do in a pinch.
So now, did the windmills always have the batteries then? So You had talked about when the wind blew hard, the lights glowed real good, and then when the wind was low and no wind,
Well,
it
that's
was.
if your batteries are kind of low in the first place.
Uh huh.
Everything depended on your wind
Yeah.
to get them. And I don't know. Yeah, it seemed to me that those bright lights were never brighter unless it just seemed that way to me
Uh huh.
because I couldn't get them shut off. You do some pretty strange things. And
Well, what else can we talk about here?
I don't know. So there's much of interest. I don't know if there's. Guess I have to read my stuff.
Yeah.
Because every
Yeah.
week when I was writing this, I would jot down this and this. And then on Sunday morning, I'd sit down and try and fill this in. And
You'd write down a little outline and then go from there.
yeah. And then it got to where I was running out of even ideas. But I just don't know. Maybe I write better than I talk.
No, I don't
Can't
know.
tell.
Yeah, you just wander or talk. Yeah, go from one subject to the next.
Yeah.
So.
I'm not sorry that I grew up here. A lot of people say, boy, they wouldn't want to ever live it again. But I don't think it was that awful bad. I think it's an attitude,
Yeah.
I guess. When
Yeah.
you don't know any different,
Yeah.
what could be so?
What's the difference? Yeah.
What could be so? But we had our good times. We danced a lot when we were young kids. That was about the cheapest entertainment you could go to would be to a dance.
Did they have any admission fee or anything, or
Yeah, I don't know. It probably cost a quarter to get into a dance. I don't know.
that'd be to pay for the band or
Yeah, it would
pay
have-
for the orchestra or whatever?
That's right. And I don't remember about the lights that they had in the Amadon. It must have been some Delco lights.
What's a Delco light?
I don't know. It seemed to me that was run off a motor.
Oh,
And,
okay.
Everybody had some different. I remember these lights. Connors had them. They had little lights that hung up on the wall,
Uh-huh.
and they had. I don't know what they were.
Huh.
I really don't know if I've got the right name for it. Very few people had it though. There was something at the bottom that didn't work,
Oh.
or it wasn't
Probably
successful.
a generator run by the gas motor, I suppose, instead of the windmill. Would they work on the same principle?
I don't know what the energy was that gave the light. I haven't the vaguest idea. Connors had them and Fugelsted's had them. They're the only two I know of that had it. But everybody mostly had kerosene. I have a hate for kerosene, so help me God. I drank some of that once, and I'll tell you, if you, that was just like vomiting a log chain with a grab hook every day.
Yeah, how the hell did you drink some of that?
I was a pretty young kid, and I was playing hide and go seek, and I thought, hey, there's a cup of water, what the heck? And I think Mom had it to start a fire, start the kitchen stove, and I took a swallow of that, and I was so sick I'd like to die, and then I was afraid I wasn't going to die. And to this day, kerosene really has turned me off.
You've had enough of that, huh? So now, the house was lit with kerosene lanterns in, right? And you had to clean them doggone chimneys and...
Yeah. Well, you think of what you had to do. About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you get some ashes out, and you get some coal in, and you get the kerosene lamps filled, and clean the chimneys. And that was just to get settled in
for
for
that
the
day,
night.
yeah.
Just so you could live through the night, so you could do it the next day. And it was messy, you know, the mashes were so messy. And if you got bats of coal, you might have a lot of clinkers
Uh-huh,
and no heat.
yeah. And the clinkers were the iron that was in the coal.
It's a mineral, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And, when we were living down in the Dubazar place there, we got some Havelock coal that one winter. It was solid, so much clinker and so little heat, and that whole driveway was so full of clinkers that I had thrown out.
Uh-huh.
You know, you had to pretty clean the thing out to even get any draft because they were just stuck right to the grates.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, they were just,
Now, did you cook off that stove too, then, the coal stove?
oh yeah.
When it was heated the house and.
Oh, the cook stove was in the kitchen and it helped heat the kitchen too.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah, the blast heater, the pot-bellied heater, that was in the living room.
Okay.
And we took the stove out every spring and set it on the porch. Took the stove pipes down, shook the soot out of them,
Oh.
and then we would put them all back in the fall.
In the fall, okay.
Mhm.
That would give you more room to play cards and stuff in there.
Well, yeah, and it wasn't such a mess, and it got out of the way. And then we put the furnace register in the same place where that stove stood.
Oh, okay.
But I think about my dad so much. He used to chew snuff, and he had such an accurate spit that he could, the front of that pot-bellied stove had a open door
Uh-huh.
that had a screw or a damper. I don't know what you call it. It was to let the air in, you
Uh-huh.
see, to get a blaze from the bottom.
Uh-huh.
And you could screw it shut when you want to shut down. And that thing would be open a little bit, he could spit right into that darn hole. But it was almost getting dangerous to have that stove because under the chrome rim that sat on the top was just burnt out.
Is that
Where
right?
you could see the flame or the light of the coal burning and stuff in there. So anybody that had ever hit that damn thing could have knocked that thing completely out.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. It was burnt out, that's all.
How many years did it take to burn that out?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know when they got it, but I know I must have been about 5th, 6th grade
When they got the other
when they got
furnace?
the other furnace.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we can.
I'm
We can knock it off.
running blank here too. We've been at this for a few hours today,
I know.
so.
It'll be pretty doggone tiresome to be listening to all of that and say, God, it took a lot of living to be.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't live in